Hey everyone, how is it going? We are live on YouTube, youtube.com/Rudy Caseres. I'm excited for this show today. New year, same struggles. We have a great panel up here, and I'm just one of many. I always promise I'm going to do super short intros and always fail at that, but this time, damn it, I'm going to succeed. So let's get right into it. First and foremost, if you're watching this live, please let us know that you're here. Let us know that you care by um, typing into the chat. Make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. I've had this channel for quite some time, and I'm really starting to. It's funny because this show is about New Year's resolutions and how like they can be problematic or stuff. My New Year's resolution is to actually do something with this YouTube channel, but so far so good. I'm actually doing things with it, and that's a success to me. And it can become even more of a success by belonging to this community, subscribing, make sure you're signed up for notifications, clicking on the bells, clicking on the reminders for live streams. We're going to try to do this a couple times a month and have it on different topics, different panels. So be on the lookout for that. The best way, of course, is to subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. That's enough of my sales pitch. Let's get right into the swing of things. We are talking about New Year's resolutions, problem or not, or just bad overall. And I have a great panel up. I'll bring them up all one by one in just a second. But a little bit about me, real quickly. I'm Rudy Caseres, right here, spelled like that. I've been live streaming since, let's just say 2016 and doing my thing. And I've already broke my promise of doing a short intro. So let's get into the swing of things. RudyCaceres.com, by the way. Here is our lovely panel. We've got Alexi Mannion, we've got Sarah Jickling, we've got Shira Collings, Jenny Lynn, Anya Burke. I always get better each time I say that, and I'm so glad. We got Dean de Benedictus making his debut on one of my shows. I finally roped him into it. And just quick program note, Natasha A. Pierre, who was supposed to be on the show, couldn't make it, but hope to have her on in the future. Best wishes to her. Let's get into the swing of things. Let's get on to our first panelists. We'll kind of go around the round rectangle doobly-doo and do your little intro. And then we've got some questions, and then we'll kind of just mix and match with that and have some fun, maybe? Okay, let's get on.
Hi, I'm Lexi. I'm a freelance writer. I'm a student and an artist. So I've written for a lot of online publications over the years, writing about my mental health and body acceptance topics. And I love watercolor and acrylic painting. I actually graduated with my associate degree in fine arts last spring. And right now I'm a psychology major and fine arts minor, and I'm working towards becoming an art therapist. So that's my little spiel.
Yes, and we've been following each other for quite some time. You got to be on one of my earlier shows a long time ago, so it's exciting to see how far we've both progressed. And so, thank you so much for being on here, and we'll, of course, get back to you soon. Tell the whole world, everyone watching on YouTube, who is Shira Collings.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shira, and I am an eating disorder therapist in the Philadelphia area. While eating disorders are my primary specialization, I also work with people with a variety of other mental health concerns and diagnoses. I'm especially passionate about working with neurodivergent folks and LGBTQ folks with disordered eating, eating disorders, and body image struggles, as well as, again, other mental health concerns. I also have lived experience of my own mental health struggles, and I do mental health advocacy work in addition to my role as a therapist. Currently, I work as the National Empowerment Center's youth coordinator, which is an organization led by and for people with lived experience of mental health challenges, trauma, and recovery. And I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you're someone I've got to work with plenty of times in the past, so I'm glad you're here. You've got the cats. Um,
Yes.
how many cats are you on right now?
I have 4 total, but I'm in my foster cat room. So I have 2 foster kittens just in this room. And this is Mumu right here, who will probably be joining us. And I have another one, Latka, who's sleeping in the back corner. She may join us at some point too.
Awesome. Sadly, my dog is not in the room right now, but Anime sends her best wishes. Tell the whole world, everyone watching on YouTube, who is Anya Burke.
Hi, I'm Anya. I am a mental health blogger. I created a blog a few years ago called Calculating Mind, sorry. And I'm currently a graduate student at ECU in the school psychology program.
Yes, and you're someone else who I've worked with quite a bit in the past on like 4 different platforms, so I always appreciate. I always throw a lot at you, so thank you so much for taking up the challenge. Fun fact about you: what is the special character above the C in your last name?
It's I don't know what it's called, but it makes a ch sound, the CH sound, so that always trips people up.
Yeah, I had the dubious misfortune of calling you Anya Burke the first time, and since then I've always tried to make the effort of including the character above the C. Whenever, so I always have to like copy and paste it from somewhere else. So I make that extra effort. I'm still paying my penance for all those years. So thank you for being on here.
Thank you.
Moving on, tell everyone again. I know you were here last week, but damn it, one more time for old time's sake. Who is Sarah Jickling?
I will, it doesn't have to be one more time. I'll do this forever. My name's Sarah Jickling. I'm a musician, singer-songwriter, mental health advocate, living with bipolar disorder and a bunch of other things as well. I've collected the whole alphabet. And I'm working on a new song about being neurodivergent. And I also, yeah, I just like to create music and turn the pain of mental illness into something pretty slash interesting.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for being on here. I always appreciate you answering the call, and I'm probably going to have you on here for the next one too, because I think you'll be have a lot to say about that. But we'll talk about that off stream. So thank you again, as always. And someday, I know it's not very hard. Someday we're gonna have you play music on stream too, and so
That'll be
I
so
know,
fun.
and that'll like take care of like all the copyright issues. We'll just play Sarah Jickling music, and that'll be like our theme song, or outro song, or interstitials, and be
I
good.
give you permission.
There you go. Tell YouTube that.
I will.
Okay. Last and certainly as most, my good friend, who I've known all the way back since 2006, tell the whole world, who is actually, no, we have someone else after this, so just hang tight. Who is Dean de Benedictus?
Hello, my name is Dean de Benedictus, and I've been a concept artist and composer and producer all my life. Now adding filmmaking to the queue. It's been slow coming, but it's happening. I have dabbled in other mediums, and I've been a philosophy enthusiast, among mental health and advocate. I suffer from many things myself, mentally, emotionally. I've been diagnosed with lots of conflicting things. And I've been one of the few people I know who has tried to brave those odds without the use of synthetics or medications. Still on the fence about what the results of that have been. And I'm still learning a lot about, the current world of mental health. So I'm happy to be here and talk about these things.
Yeah, and then thank you. Like, and something I'm trying to do, Dean, is branch out from just like having on so-called mental health advocates who I love. I'm one of them, and we have plenty of amazing ones here. But everyone has a mental health story, especially in this day and age. So we miss out if all we do is just talk amongst ourselves, and like we need to branch out more into the world and realize there's so many different stories going on, so many different interesting people with interesting stories such as yours, who normally like you're not going to be speaking at like some healthcare conference or something like that. You've got your own business going on. You're a musician, wear many hats, very, very talented. And so I'm glad to have you on here. I first met you back in 2016 at Santa Monica College, and we actually have another SMC alum up in the building. And so I'm excited to bring her on. I'm so glad that we're able to make this work. It's getting a little funky. I'm telling this to the YouTube audience, so bear with me as like I switch out my camera view right here real quick. So let's just kind of just do some live troubleshooting here. Okay, and then we'll switch. Doo-doo-doo. And so let's see if I got this right. Uh, there we go. Oh my God, I picked out the right time. Tell the whole world,
Hey.
the whole wide world on YouTube, who is Jenny Lynn.
Hi, I'm Jenny Lynn. I too wear many hats. I'm an events manager and planner here in LA and a professional sideshow performer with a degree in mortuary science.
Are you still unkillable?
I am. I remain unkillable.
Obviously, thank you so much for being here. I know like you're experiencing some migraine issues, and hopefully my deep like, voice and lip smacking aren't making it worse. So thank you so much for being on here. I believe that's everyone. Let's get back into our full grid mode here, and just everyone wave to the YouTube crowd. We've got a poll out here on the YouTube chat too, so feel free to answer that. Simple enough. I'm looking at the results so far. It's what is the poll? It's our New Year's resolutions, good or bad? Basically, what's your opinion on? So keep doing that. That thing will be active for the duration of the show. Again, if you have any questions for any of the panelists, feel free to ask. If anything that you want us to bring up or address, or just want to say hi, let us know where you're from. That's all well and good. So let's get on to the first question. Probably won't have time to get through all of them, but let's just try to like rapid fire through. First question, and it is a doozy. How do New Year's resolutions often set people up for failure, and what impact does this have on their mental health? Let's go with Lexi.
Yeah, so this is a really great question. So I've been thinking about this lately. We're all thinking about this when the new year rolls around, and I think for me that coming up with specific goals that are looser and that don't require so much like attention to detail. Like I feel like having more loose fitting goals is helpful to me. Like a lot of us may have in the past been like, oh, I want to do I don't know, for instance, like a big goal is like I want to lose X amount of weight. And of course, there's the whole conversation of, are you setting yourself up for failure if you're so focused on this end goal rather than actually enjoying the process? Or is it healthy to even have a goal like that? So I found for me that having stricter goals in some regard to my life is really useful. Whereas sometimes having more loose goals is healthier for me. I know as an artist, sometimes people get into this mode of like, oh, I want to sell like 10 paintings this year. And I think I want to focus more on my enjoyment with creating, and I want a goal of mine to be to create more. I don't want to like assign a numerical value to it, because I think that's when it can become like this all or nothing, and even a bit unhealthy, because it's like, what if you don't reach that goal and you're almost setting yourself up for failure, or maybe you think like maybe you reach the goal and maybe the next time around you don't reach it. So I think having some looser goals, like I want to be more like peaceful this year. I want to be more joyful when like exercising and when creating art or writing. I think when we start putting values on it, like even like with my writing, like last year I was really proud that I started out the year writing like 4 different articles. And I mean, it's great when I can write that much, but and have that much creativity, but I think it starts becoming a little dangerous and unhealthy when I start assigning values to it, because it's also like, am I only worthy if I put out this much amount of work? And recognizing that our worth is constant no matter what, no matter what size we are, no matter what we look like, no matter what.
All right. I hear Dean. So let's go to him.
Yeah. Well, our worth being constant. It's, of course, yeah, that's, sometimes I don't think we associate that topic or enigma enough with topics like New Year's resolutions or any societal expectation of a person to quote unquote get their act together. Anything that's, that type of a personal solution that's not purely on a personal basis, I think it's probably not looked at and dissected enough and analyzed enough. So in a nutshell, I think on that one anyway, New Year's resolutions is the perfect example of this. It seems like there might have once been a time when New Year's resolutions was not only appropriate, but necessary. And maybe it really helped a lot of people. And maybe it in turn helped society as a result, because we were at a place in history where we needed more formal systems for staying focused. But the world has evolved into this far less cut and dry type of definition now. It's a lot more complex and complicated. And I understand how some think that, having these public and formal ways of reining priorities in would be an answer to that. But I don't see that. I see now, things like New Year's resolutions being more of either an eyesore or an actual barrier, because the idea of resetting only on New Year's, only one day a year, and that if you miss that reset, you got to wait until the next one rolls around, is really putting a type of pressure on each of us that we're not even aware of. When in reality, we do all things on a personal basis. We change when we're ready to change. We set new patterns for ourselves or learn new ways of living when we're ready to. And I don't think that's something that people can be pressured out of. And I don't think significant change of any kind is something that people can be pressured into by some grandiose formal setting or indicator.
Yeah, and to be clear, the whole concept of New Year's resolutions, it goes back all the way to like basically the Babylonians. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with setting goals. We're not trying to advocate for that. It's important to work on yourself, to have self-compassion, to love yourself and want to improve. I think where we've been led astray over the years, over the millennia, is hyper focused on very superficial things like weight loss or having more money or having like more muscles, getting in better shape and whatever, what have you, or getting that one dream job, which may sound nice, but may not be realistic within the next year. And that's like what I feel like we're too hyper focused on, these unrealistic goals they may not never be unattainable, but maybe within a year, that's like too much. And then what happens is, I'm sure a lot of you others can attest to this, is that you end up putting all this pressure on yourself that you got to do this, you got to go to the gym. Like, oh, I didn't go to the gym one day, I suck, and snowball effect. And before you know it, you give up, and then you feel bad, and then like it's like, oh, I'll try again next year, and it's this repeating process. And so, if you take anything away from this panel show right here, is that having goals is great, working on yourself is great, but when you're doing it just because like you feel like society expects that out of you, or if you think that this is going to make you a more desirable person, then we're going to have issues. I see some nods here. Let's go to Shira.
Okay, am I on
You're
now?
good.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think there's a lot of value in having goals or setting intentions or just having things that you want to work on for yourself. I think yeah, there's a really important distinction to make in whether those goals are truly for yourself because they're aligned with your own values and you really believe that it's something that would enhance your own quality of life, personal well-being, your health, etc., or whether it's about society and societal values and pressures. And then I also think, like others have been saying, there's a really important distinction between whether the goal is kind of like something binary or like numerical, something that you can say, I either did this or didn't do this. I really think that sets people up for failure because it's so easy to yeah, have something that's unattainable or life just gets in the way. And then it feels like if your worth is kind of attached to that, then that can really negatively impact self-esteem versus if you have an intention that you want to be more creative or experience more joy or have more self-compassion or something along that line that's not such a binary. It's more of just an intention of something you'd like to be aiming toward or doing more of. I think that can be really helpful and supportive because that's something you can choose to work on at any point, any day, and not doing it one day or slipping up or life getting in the way doesn't mean you haven't done it at all or that you failed, if that makes sense.
Right. And let's
Yeah.
let's do a show of hands. Who had a New Year's resolution for this year?
I started to kind of
That's-
form one. I kind of learned from the other years. It's like, maybe not.
Yeah, and that
Right.
and I wrote an article about how like I used to always want to like be less depressed. Just if I can do that, then everything else can follow along. Just be less depressed and then collect money, I guess. And so I stopped doing that. Well, mostly because like I know that like I'm always going to have depression in some way, and so I don't want to. I know it's never gonna leave my life, and so I have to learn to live with it. It sucks at times, like, but in some ways, it kind of it speaks to me. It's weird as that sounds, like, because if I'm depressed, I know something is not right in my life, and that's not always obvious. And so I have to do some introspection. I have to ask myself some hard questions. I may have to give up on some things, to abandon some plans, or even people. And so I can't ever not have depression, as horrible and soul sucking as it can be at times. So I just try to just live with that and to just know that things are, I'm going to work on myself. And I know that's like so cliche, but for the most part, and that means different things to different people. But for me, it's just like, I just want to be a nicer person. If I could be nicer, then that can solve so many issues as well. And I tend to get a lot of anxiety and get worked up, and then that can be taken out on others. And so that's one thing that I want to work on. And I know the YouTube channel will be great, but I'm not gonna like have my whole world crumble on me if I stop doing these shows. I love doing these. It doesn't feel like I'm have to do these because I set out a resolution like I would if like say if it was to go to the gym every day. I would just like hate that after a while because I'm just not a gym person. Um, I love to exercise when I can do it. It feels good afterwards, but I just hate going to the gym. And so we just have to find these ways to improve upon ourselves without that pressure, because then it's not fun anymore and just becomes like just your worst enemy. So did anyone is anyone here just like super anti against New Year's resolutions?
The
Uh,
more,
I think I am.
Well, let's hear you, Sarah. What is your take?
Well, so I think that as somebody who grew up with a mom who very publicly made her New Year's resolution to lose weight every single year from when I was born to now, I learned pretty quickly that this is not a thing that works. It's more like a thing that where you say the thing that you feel that makes you feel the most empty, and then there's no planning, and there's no,
hmm,
there's nothing that follows up. But throughout my life, I thought, well, I'm going to do better than that. I'm going to make a resolution and I'm going to achieve it. And so then that became a whole thing where I was like SMART goals and all, I making it very measurable, making it like achievable. And yet that also seemed to backfire. And I don't know if it's, living with bipolar disorder or whatever, but SMART goals don't work for me. I think that the loosey goosey stuff is much better. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like, I read somewhere that you should make a little jar and write down everything you've done in the year, like as it's happening, put it in the jar. And then at the end of the year, you take it out and you read all the things you've done. So I did that for 3 years and it was great. And then the pandemic happened. And as you know, the music industry kind of crumbled and I didn't do anything. And at the end of the year, I had like 3 things in there and I felt awful. So even that, even that like soft version of New Year's resolutions made me feel terrible. And I think it is because I associate worth with productivity.
hmm,
So because I didn't achieve anything important enough for me to write in the jar, um, then I felt horrible. And so now I'm just like, not for me. No, thank you. And I will say I work at a fitness studio, teaching pole dancing, and this is a very corporate thing. People make a lot of money off of pushing New Year's resolutions. So if it's really something you want to do, obviously you can do it, but know that like there's people who have agendas as well who do push this idea on you. So it can be a little bit of a rebellious act to just be like, no,
hmm.
not gonna do it.
Yeah, New Year's resolutions at this point are basically in the same category of like you have to have a Valentine for Valentine's Day. You gotta get your partner chocolates and stuff for the birthday gifts and all that stuff. And so it's been commoditized, it's been corporatized, and just another bad symptom of capitalism. And so we can't lose sight of that as again, important to have goals, but you got to keep in mind there's all these ulterior motives that society is and brands are pushing upon you for why you should have New Year's resolutions. What were you gonna say, Dane?
Oh, uh, I was just agreeing with everyone, but yeah, I mean, agreements all around. It seems like every holiday has its share of, if you want to call it, you know, capitalist residue. It's got its share of exploitation that, you know, benefits. We'll just call them special interests, but it's just the whole phenomenon of exploitation that revolves around holidays. I mean, there's so many holiday expectations with every, you know, I would almost say federally recognized holiday, but it's not even that. It's really just the frilly holidays, the ones that come with decor and confetti. And New Year's happens to be one of them. We got this thing called resolutions, and it's like, wow, yeah, you can't, whether it's on a personal basis or a public basis, you can't pressure somebody into meeting their goals. Of course, the idea of what goals are good and what goals are bad it's almost a different topic. If one can decide on goals for themselves, and that is unchanging, then we can at least, loosely call it good goals, because it's in the consent of the very person who made the goal. So once that is established, I think meeting a goal is such a miracle when it happens. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like it's impossible to do. That's not what I mean. I just mean that some goals are harder to attain than others, and once we set out on that path, we need all the help and control and power, or our ability that we can muster to get to the end there, whatever that end happens to be. And it just seems like pressure to not only meet the goal, but to stay on course, exactly on course. Yeah, that's been a big problem. My girlfriend, when I met her, I was eating horribly at that time. It was just kind of a self-destructive period. And she said, because she's a nutritionist, so she said, you don't. A lot of people have this idea that if you splurge and eat the wrong thing when you're on a diet, or even if you're like an addict or an alcoholic and you have one drink and you take that as this excuse, oh, well, I took a sip, I had a drink, I might as well just keep going. And she drew it to my attention that we tend to think this way, and that you don't have to. You simply just had a drink, or you had a sip, or you ate the wrong thing. And it doesn't mean that that you fell off any proverbial wagon. It doesn't mean that that's it. You gotta start all over. You don't have to look at it that way. It's just something that happened, and you're in the middle of a different type of practice. And it doesn't have to have exact disciplinary guidelines the way that I think society infers that it should. Like,
Right on.
If you falter at all, that's it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Let's move on to our next question, and that is, can you discuss some of the common negative consequences that people experience when they don't achieve their New Year's resolutions? I want to talk to Jenny and Anya for this one. So take it away, Jenny.
This is actually something that has been coming up with me a lot as someone with a chronic illness. We've been talking about the pressure to have goals. It's this massive conversation this time of year where commercials and people and everything is kind of asking you, what do you need to change about yourself? So there's pressure from the get-go just to have something that needs to be done. And then, of course, there's the follow-up, the pressure to actually, make the change. And as someone with a chronic illness, what I'm realizing now is, I can come up with these goals for myself, and I can say, okay, the goal this year is to get a raise, or, something that is numerical, just some, quantifiable, as opposed to qualifiable. But occasionally my body is just not going to let me do it. Today I almost wasn't able to do this because I woke up with a migraine. And it definitely affects self-worth in a way that, prior to developing this chronic illness, the disability, it didn't occur to me in such harsh terms, if that makes any sense, where I felt like I was more in control of things. And so if I failed to meet a goal, then obviously I failed. That was my bad. I planned incorrectly, or I didn't want it badly enough. And, obviously these are thought distortions. They don't reflect the reality of the situation. But it wasn't until I had a lot of my agency sort of taken away from me that I was able to see how detrimental that assumption is, that it is all within our control and we should be able to just put our mind to something and make it happen. It's incredibly ableist, and just unkind to ourselves to kind of live in this reality where we're, expected to do everything all the time just because we say we want to do it. And New Year's resolutions really just kind of magnify all of that for me. We get to a point where it's compulsory, it's obligatory, it's just assumed. I mean, I remember in elementary school, it was an assignment occasionally and the teacher would say, what's your resolution? You'd make a little card or something and put it on the board. I think that was in an episode of The Office too. And it didn't go well because people started melting down. But yeah, so I feel like I'm rambling a bit. Also, I'm on migraine medications. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, sorry. What you mentioned, like what you're talking about, basically, one of the hardest things for me even, and I don't have migraines, but I have my own issues, is just like it's okay to have your body just tell you no and to listen to it. Is that the body is sometimes it feels like our body is our enemy and it's like weighing us down and stuff, but our body is just trying to warn us. It's that stern parent where it's like, I love you, like I want to be there for you, I want to be the fun parent and everything, but no, you cannot do this. And sometimes you just have to listen to it. And there's going to be people, even friends, you're going to lose friends, they're going to say like, oh, you're not fun anymore and blah blah blah. Just screw them. You just got to keep moving on, keep listening to your body, because the more you listen to your body, like that old phrase goes, the body keeps a score, and the body doesn't lie to you. And so the more that you learn to just trust your body, like you'll be better off, and you'll be able to actually do things that you like doing in the long run, because you're not constantly fighting this deficit. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But...
Oh, no, you're fine. Thank you. Rambling is a problem. Yeah, but I just feel like it's very detrimental, and it kind of breaks my heart, honestly, especially because this isn't a bigger part of the conversation. This conversation that we're having now is not part of the national discourse. The discourse around this time of year is new year, new you. What are you going to change about yourself? What are you going to do to be better? Which implies also that you're not great right now. You're in some way deficient. And we're all kind of fine with that. That seems to be, our society is just like, all right, cool. We've all bought into this idea, and we're just not going to talk about the flip side, about the way that it does hurt us, the way in which we could be showing up for each other better. There's a huge part of that conversation that's missing, I think, in general. So I'm actually really pleased that we're having this talk right now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about, like always trying to improve yourself, always tap into that unrealized potential and everything. And it's like you can always like go more and more and more. It's like part of that hustle and grind culture that's just so toxic for everyone. And we don't really pay attention to that enough. The negative side of that, we think in our society, like still, at least in the United States, I know there's other countries are better, but in our country, like we were like we still haven't got our head around like no, that's actually bad for you, that whole hustle culture. That's actually like raising a whole like society, a whole generation on this belief that like we like sleep is bad, vacation is
Right.
bad, like off time is bad. It's just blows my mind, because we should be able to enjoy our downtime. We should advocate for that. We should have more downtime. That's I know it makes it sound like entitled millennials, but it's like the whole point of like if we're going to advance as a society, let's advance to a society where we don't have to grind as much and like be like always miserable all the time. That's a good
Mm.
advancement. Let's work on that. What say you,
Right.
Anya? Apologies for not getting to you sooner.
Fine. I don't know how to fix all of that, but I think that a lot of people kind of internalize the way that their goals end up. So a lot of people, I think, if they're like me, they're kind of like a perfectionist, and so if they don't reach 100% of their goal, then it's like a complete failure. It's that all or nothing kind of mentality, and that's just not healthy. And then you internalize that, and then think that you're not worthy as a person, and then that leads to depression and anxiety and a whole bunch of issues. And so it's just like constantly comparing yourself to an imaginary perfect version of yourself. And it doesn't really make sense, but I think a lot of people do that and then get crushed.
Right, right. And it's I can't stress enough. A lot of this, it's all imaginary. It's most of it is bad for you, and it's it's gone for the point where it's nice to have goals and everything and to like want to achieve things, but it's like we so many people they become obsessed about it, and then like their mental health suffers, and they're compare themselves to others because they'll see like on Instagram like oh so and so like had a weight loss goal and like they've lost 10 pounds. Well, you saw the picture, like they're doing it. Why am I not doing it? So it's just tied into it, and it's like that's like I really want to get across is that New Year's resolutions, it seems cool, it seems fun, and everyone should have one and be a part of the conversation and everything. But then you see the dark side of what we're getting into. But let's get on to another question and let's just try to fire through this. I know we won't have time for much more. How do New Year's resolutions often lead to a focus on external validation and a neglect on internal well being? Let's get to Lexi.
Yeah, that's another big one, especially in terms of weight loss or your image, because, I think a lot of goals are centered around what we look like. And it's a shame because, your emotional health, your mental well-being, that's your health too. And it's not like I mean, some people like to do like divide mental and physical health, but it's a package deal and one affects the other. So I think when we're spending so much time focusing just on the outside, we forget what's going on inside as well. And I also just wanted to echo off of everyone else saying that I think it's like so unuseful um, when we focus on goals only for the new year, because I mean, if you're only focusing on your goals for like a performance review at work or for school or for the New Year's, it's like we should always be working towards bettering ourselves, but also the other side of that is taking good care of yourself and knowing when goals are harmful. And when we come up with goals like I want to lose X amount of weight, we just kind of leave behind the whole mental aspect, and we don't give ourselves room for, as said before, like those slip ups and, those days where we want to treat ourselves. And, when I was thinking about this topic earlier, this one sentence came to mind where I was just like, like I focus on, you know, not quote unquote eating right, but I focus on eating foods that are going to make me feel good. And, some days I want to, like get a protein and vegetable in or fruit. And, that's bettering my mental and physical health. That's bettering me overall. And also every now and then, like I want to treat myself to a piece of cheesecake, and that is good for my mental health. So it's not so easily saying like, oh, you jumped off the bandwagon. And that segues perfectly into that. It's like, you're not a bad person, you're not unworthy if treat yourself every now and then. I think especially in terms of, what we put into our bodies, how much we exercise, how we move our bodies, I think it just comes back to balance. I think that's the key word. You don't want to be overdoing it. You don't want to be so stressed out that, you're driving yourself crazy trying to meet these goals. And, we should always be working on, self-improvement, but also not at the detriment of ourselves. It's a balance.
Yeah, and one of my questions was going to be about body image and eating disorder issues, and I want to make sure I get that with you because I know you speak a lot about that. And one of the number one resolutions every year for time immemorial is lose weight, and obviously there's so many issues with that, and um, people like they set these resolutions and they some of them they lose weight and they do it like the worst way possible, and then they put the weight back on and then they feel worse and everything, and they associate fat with badness, and so it just creates this whole other cycle. I can't say it enough. New Year's resolutions, there is a dark side to it. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I did want to bring up real quickly. It's looking like with Gen Z and newer generations that that's starting to be put more by the wayside, and actually like working on one's mental health is starting to become a top priority for the younger generations. And actually that's a New Year's resolution that's commendable. Except for me, I've given up on that.
Yeah, in terms of weight loss, yeah, I feel like that's all everyone ever talks about, which is such a shame because, we have so much more to offer and to improve upon and to heal than just our weight. And I've written pretty extensively on my blog about it if you want to check that out. But I wrote an article about, because I'm not necessarily on a weight loss journey. I feel like I'm on more of a life journey. And, being in recovery from an eating disorder, I've naturally lost weight, but it's not because I'm dieting or, pushing myself to an extreme. It's just I gained a lot of weight when I was in recovery. And some of the weight gain was from binge eating over a long period of time. So, and it's not to say like I'm terribly unhealthy, because there are trolls and people on the internet who are like, wow, you're so ugly and overweight and all this stuff. And I don't know, when you begin to view it as more of like a journey rather than a destination, I think we can let go of the pressures of it. But yeah, I've kind of written about how I don't see it as a pressure to lose weight. It's just kind of been my process. And it's not a goal I have. It's just kind of like more of a byproduct. And as also echoing what said before, like when I'm more loose with my goals, when I'm, giving myself grace, when I'm not, relying on perfectionistic qualities, I'm just happier. And that's I feel like our goals should be centered more around, peace and quality of life and joy. And also speaking about that, I think intentions are great to have rather than resolutions. And one of my words for the new year is peace. And when we think about, a word, like it's hard to sum up a year with one word, but coming with that intention is, I'm also recognizing like, yes, I may have bad days. Yes, I may, panic some moments or be really upset or be sad or depressed. But what I want to come back to is like inner peace. And I want to focus on that and have an intention around that rather than a goal of like I could make up a goal like I want to be happy. But I mean, and people say that in life, like I want to be happy, or I want my child to be happy and healthy. And it's just not a realistic goal. It's like we want to be able to look at it from more like everything affects each other. And I think coming at it from more of like a mindful approach, like life is going to have its ups and downs, but I'm going to focus on, what I can do to come back to peace or wellness. I think that's realistic. And I think that we should be focusing more on that rather than, as said before, like the numerical value or the numerical goals.
Right. I saw Jenny with her hand up. What say you?
Wanted to jump in with the idea of practice, things being a practice. I think that's so important. I am in a yoga course right now that it focuses on the entire yogic philosophy, not just the asanas. And it's very much, repeated over and over again that yoga is a practice. It's not that you are suddenly done with yoga, or like you won yoga, you finished yoga. It's something that you are just constantly doing. And another adage that's always in my mind these days is progress, not perfection. Um, just this idea, exactly what Lexi was saying, that it is a journey. To be very blunt, the destination is death, and then we kind of don't really have anything to do after that. So I focusing on having these rigid goals and being good and winning, and this sort of exceptionalism, and it's so detrimental to us. And I think I know when I'm actually in my yoga practice and following the 8 limbs and everything, I'm just in a healthier, better place because I'm not struggling with anything. I'm just existing, and I'm practicing, and I'm progressing. And I think it would just be so wonderful if we could change so much of our society's sort of goals and driving forces away from this, end be all end all, let's do the thing or whatever, and move into a gentler place of practice and process, and nobody gets out of here alive, so we might as well stop trying to fight against whatever it is, and go with the flow, but in a way that is not only attainable, but it's kinder to both ourselves and to everybody else around us.
Right, great points. I wanted to hear from Shira, especially because I know you talk a lot about diet culture and fat acceptance and neurodivergence. And so talk about from your point of view on how toxic this is for just not even just for like people dealing with weight issues, but because like I've dealt with body image issues and people wouldn't expect that. And so just sing, do your things. I know you're amazing at this. And so give us our greatest hits.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus on weight loss as a goal in general is something that's celebrated, as something that we should be striving toward, like really absolutely sends the message that thinness is inherently good and healthy, and fatness is inherently bad and unhealthy. And that just is absolutely not true. Body size diversity is a fact of human life. It is a form of diversity. We are all meant to be different shapes and sizes. And when we try to shrink our bodies, when we try to force our bodies to be a size that they're not meant to be through weight loss, and through restricting ourselves and depriving ourselves of food, that is so harmful. There are so many risks of that often does lead people into cycles of disordered eating, whether that's restricting or a restrict binge cycle, or kind of what everyone's been describing of inevitably your body often craves food that you're depriving it of, because our bodies need all kinds of foods to function. And when we deprive our bodies of whatever kind of nutrients, our bodies freak out and panic and crave that food. And then we feel guilty, we feel like a failure. And that can just kind of lead to a cycle of more and more disordered eating and more mental health distress, depression, anxiety, all kinds of issues, shame and low self-esteem. And that is why I think it's really important to recognize too that 95 to 98% of diets or weight loss attempts do not work, because again, body size diversity is natural and normal, and our bodies fight to be the size that they want to be, and that may be a higher weight range than what we consider healthy according to the BMI, which, by the way, is racist and classist, sexist, based on just really harmful, outdated standards, not correct at all. So a lot of people's body sizes are just meant to be a higher weight, a larger size.
Yes.
And when we fight against that, that is so harmful. So I think just this celebration of weight loss, this promotion of thinness, that is so oppressive and just really reinforces fat phobia, anti-fatness, and sends the message that this thing that actually harms our body, like I think food restriction is self-harm. It has risks and harmful consequences. When we celebrate that, that is so detrimental.
Now, can you, like, within 20 minutes, talk about why Tony Robbins is bad? Go. 20 minutes is too short, but we'll do a Tony Robbins episode.
Yes, please.
Okay, but I don't want to open that whole can of worms. One of the questions, I know we're running out of time, and I don't want to keep you for too much longer than I had promised. So I think the question how can society shift away from the pressure to make New Year's resolutions and focus on sustainable self-improvement throughout the year? And I kind of wanted to coupling with this. I think it was like number 9 or 8, but just basically, because there's gonna be people who's like, well, like I do want to work on myself. I do want some skills. Like, what can I do? And first and foremost, I can tell you just straight up from my years of being on this planet, the only real way to achieve goals is to start small, start practical, start on something that you can actually do today. If your goal is to start reading a novel every day, you don't start by reading a whole novel in a day. You start by reading a sentence if you have to. And I know that sounds silly, but for some people, they can't even read one sentence. There we go, Sarah. So if you do want to lose weight for whatever reason, do a sit-up a day, do 2 sit-ups a day or everything. Don't try to bust your ass at the gym and make yourself feel bad or anything like that. If you want to get into learn a new skill, learn a new language, start with one word or whatever, so on and so forth. So, and that's not as I guess tantalizing as a New Year's resolution. You just hold yourself accountable. You belong to you get like a Facebook or Instagram group going where you're all keep yourself accountable and everything, checking in on each other and all that stuff. And then inevitably it all falls to shit and you all feel bad and everything. And start slow, start boring, do what you got to do. And that's my 2 cents. But again, let's say all of you, let's go to Lexi.
Yeah, so definitely in terms of, resolutions, it's just so hard to keep up with them. And like you were saying with, don't stress yourself out about goals. Making them small and manageable, bite-sized, I think that's the way to go. And I was even thinking, when you were saying reading a novel a day, I have ADHD, and sometimes it's just hard for me to read readings for school. And I literally will just break it down and be like, okay, I'll read this passage, I'll read this sentence, just break it down completely. And by the end of it, I've broken it into bite-sized pieces, and I've read the whole passage. And I can do my homework now. But yeah, sometimes with my ADHD, like I have to reread things if I'm not completely present. And yeah, like I think it's also being compassionate towards yourself and being like, well, if I did slip up, if I didn't meet today's goal, if I didn't meet the goal this month, it's not an invitation to just drop it and let it go and beat yourself up. I think it's an invitation to be kinder to yourself and to forgive yourself and just recognize like I'm a human and I'm doing my best with what I have right now. So yeah, I think more manageable goals. I think that's the way to go with anything in life.
And yeah, I mean, because like we need to get beyond just the New Year's resolution, like trying to take care of ourselves throughout the year, and then that way it's like we don't get like hyper focused on it's got to be a new year, new me, and everything. When you're just constantly loving yourself, and like I almost said like constantly trying to improve yourself and all that stuff. But again, that's not the point. It's to you're good enough right now. Let's just say that. You too, Dean. Okay, you're all good right now. All right. So if you learn a new skill and everything, that's great. That's all gravy. But right now, you've got it going on. Okay. What say you, Sarah?
Well, I have I'm of two minds. One thing that I want to say is like you don't even have to get better at something. You can get worse at it. Like I what now I started uh doing nails. And inevitably it meant that I couldn't train my pole dancing like 7 days a week. And I got worse, whatever. I was not able to do the more complicated pole moves that I was able to do before. So if I had been focusing on, oh, I need to be progressing here, I may have felt like a failure when the truth is, but I also learned how to do nails and start my own business. So like you have to like really look at it from, yeah, like really uh take a huge step back, because even if some things do not progress, there's something in your life that, I mean, you're learning always. So there's something that's getting better, smarter, richer, even if it's not very obvious. And then also I want to say support, like if you have the funds or the availability, like a counselor or just someone who is going to be there for you, is a really great way to achieve a goal. I did have a goal last year to write and record a song, and I had that goal with my singing teacher, and she helped me every time we met up. She's like, okay, what can I do, what can I do for you? And I wrote it, and she even helped me, like she went to the recording studio with me. And I'm really lucky that I have that person in my life, but it's really hard to do stuff by yourself. So yeah, definitely ask for help. And if you do have goals, and don't expect to just be able to do everything alone, because that's unrealistic.
What say you, Dean?
I'm actually really enjoying, I think after hearing everyone else, it really codifies how I feel about it. I'm kind of learning, maybe even what I really mean, because I already know, my opinion, what I brought to the table before I got here. This is all really quite defining, hearing all this. I almost feel like kind of recapping in a certain way. I mean, I do think we should differentiate between goals and practices. That's a really important thing to differentiate between, because some forms of betterment have nothing to do with an end result whatsoever. It's an ongoing thing, like any other form of either maintenance or just staying at your optimal, as much as you can under the circumstances. And that, I just think that's really important. We should almost disassociate resolutions with goals. It almost feels like
Yeah.
goals have nothing to do with resolutions, right? I mean, it should just be, what are you going to practice this year? Or maybe what patterns do you want to break? Like, I think that's one that's one issue with humankind, is we fall into habitual patterns, sometimes without realizing it, a lot of the time realizing it, but always putting it off and saying we'll deal with it later. And I think what we don't realize is that in order to break a pattern doesn't mean you have to stop doing that pattern. It doesn't mean you have to change your life. It just means, oh, I do this every day, or every time this arises, I always respond with that. Today, I'm not going to. And then the next day you do, and you go back to the pattern. And perhaps you break another pattern a similar way. And these broken patterns kind of add up to a point where you have perspective over and some control and power over your life more, and some perspective over what we're doing. And even that, I think, is a magnificent thing to aspire to. And balance, like you guys were saying. I mean, of course, why don't we just strive to achieve more balance? If we don't have enough of this thing, then why don't we look at that and just, try to get enough of this thing now? And now we have too much of that thing. So now we have to stop at some point and say, oh, I need more of the other thing again. And just maintaining this position, this healthy middle position, I think, in and of itself is a miracle. I mean, not to say it's unattainable. I'm just saying, when we can stay at least centered on our priorities enough, that is, it's so rare that it happens that it seems miraculous. And I think it should be a lot less miraculous. I think it should be more common.
Well said. I agree. Thank you so much, Dane. You're doing great. This is the first time I've ever roped you into one of my shows, and so I'm so glad that you're able to bring your point of view here and share with the world, and share with these other amazing people here: Lexi, Sarah, Shira, Anya, and Jenny. You've all brought the fire today. I do want to start wrapping up though, so I'm going to let everyone get a chance to have their final words. And while you're doing this, final words coupled with anything that you wanted to mention that you didn't get a chance to, or respond to something someone else said. If you want to do some self-promotion, that's cool too. If you want to give some shout outs, give some resources, we can always put those in the comments later too. So let's go to Lexi, and we'll work our way through Sarah, Shira, Jetty, Anya, and Dean. Take it away, Lexi. Final thoughts.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, something I also wanted to touch on before, I believe what Sarah was saying, putting together a jar and just putting things into the jar throughout the year. I have one of those, like, you write a sentence every day, and it's like a 5-year journal. I don't write in it every day. I certainly don't write in it every day. But also, like, some days I will put highlights because, I want to look back and remember some happy days. And some days I literally just wrote, work was really hard. I'm really tired. Like, I feel depressed today. I feel anxious. I had a panic attack. Like, I try to be authentic to it as possible, because I think it's a nice concept to be able to look back and see, all the highlights of that year. But just going back to goals, it's and having balance and knowing that life is imperfect and we are imperfect. So yeah, I just wanted to touch upon that, because I think we can kind of get wrapped up in perfectionism, or, wanting life to be good all the time. And, there's nuance to life. There are gray areas, there are bad days, and all of it is, relative, and it's part of being a human.
Yes, and how can we stay connected with you?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram at Lexi Mannion. I blog at leximannion.com. So yes, I'm always writing about mental health and my journey through mental illness, and I'm writing about body acceptance topics. So yeah, you can find me there.
Awesome. Thank you, Lexi. Hopefully we get to work together again in the future. Let's hear from Shira.
Just want to say thank you for having me. This was awesome, and just really appreciate getting to hear from all of you and learn from all of you. I did just want to share some resources for anyone who wants to explore more about diet culture and learn more about challenging that and accepting their body rather than shrinking it, I would highly recommend the book Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison as a starting point. She also is releasing a new book in, I think, a couple months or so called The Wellness Trap, about how sometimes diet culture can be framed as about being about wellness when it's actually still just about weight loss. So I'm sure that will be great. She has a podcast called Food Psych about challenging these ideas. There's another podcast called Maintenance Phase that I highly recommend. That's also about just kind of challenging and debunking diet myths. And I also recommend the book The Body Is Not an Apology. It's about radical self-love and self-acceptance and how that intersects with a lot of different social justice ideas and identities.
Thank you, Shira. Hopefully, we get to work together again in the future as well. Let's hear from Anya.
Hi, I wanted to mention that having those smaller achievable goals are really important. I think it helps to get the ball rolling. And because if you don't make that initial goal, then I think everything else, you're just not going to keep pushing forward. Even with like little kids, that's what you do with their goals for their academic goals or their behavioral goals. You make it something that they could very easily attain, and then they keep going. And so I like that I can apply that to what we're talking about today. If you want to connect with me, I am on Twitter at Calculating Mind, and I also have a blog called thecalculatingmind.com. And if you want to connect about student mental health or bipolar disorder, lived experience, or school psychology, hit me up.
How are things going on Twitter right now? I know it's a lot of nastiness going on, but you're still pretty active. Does that feel like a losing battle right now?
I'm going to stay on there on the sinking ship until, I don't know. I'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, I haven't deleted my account yet, so I'll keep fighting alongside you because I mean, like all jokes aside, you have a lot of important things to say, a lot of good resources to share too. So wherever you can, keep spreading your positivity. Okay. And I know I'm kind of going out of the order that I said before, but let's go to Sarah right now.
Hey, so I feel like, everything that everyone says. I personally love the podcast Maintenance Phase, and I highly recommend it as well. Um, that I read the book The Fuck It Diet, and I feel like that really changed my experience with my eating disorder. That's also something I've struggled with. And in terms of like it, I also think it's really important, like some of the things that Jenny was saying, like in terms of um if we have chronic illness or mental illness, we don't get to decide. We don't get to decide, and sometimes that feels really frustrating. Sometimes you're like, I'm this old and I've only done this, but it's like, you know what, you didn't get to decide what you did. And other people do have more control. Not most people, it's not like everyone has total control of their life, but some people have more and some people do have less. And so if you are a person who lives with chronic illness or mental illness or disability, like just be super nice to yourself, because you've had to deal with a bunch of stuff that other people haven't had to deal with. So just, yeah, be really nice to yourself. If you want to find my music, it's Sarah Jickling and her Good Bad Luck. Jickling rhymes with pickling and tickling, but I guess you can also see that my name's written out here. And you can find me on Spotify and all the other streaming services. And I do have a new song that's going to come out this year. It is about my experiences with ADHD. So if you want to be in the music video, please message me, because I want to have you don't have to live near me. I want to have a bunch of people I take little videos and be a part of my music video. So yeah, let me know.
Can I be in the video?
Yes, you can.
Awesome. Is the fuck it diet, is that the one where like you look at something and you just say fuck it and that's like what you eat?
Basically, yes. and it's amazing. It's life changing.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to Jenny.
Yeah, I guess big final thought, just kindness is so necessary to ourselves, to other people. Um, it's just so important to be able to give ourselves and those around us grace. And that's how we can get into that practice mode, the progress mode, and away from the perfection. I guess if you want to track me down, I'm on Instagram, terminally_unhip. And I have a website that I haven't updated in a while, unkillable.me. If I am doing any shows in the LA or any other area, I will put those up there.
Yes, and
Thanks so much for inviting me. This was awesome.
well, you're awesome. I'm glad that we're able to work together again. You're one of my last guests back when we did the Mighty in Burbank office. And so I'm glad that we've stayed in touch. And just so everyone knows, we got all the links to all your stuff in the YouTube chat as well, too. So please support these amazing individuals, these great people, as well as our last panelist, Dean de Benedictus. Final thoughts?
I can't top that. I'm not even going to try to recap it. I love everything I just heard, and I'm really gonna take that into consideration when we're done here. I would say, well, I guess as far as reaching me and things I usually have to say, the only regular updates I keep on my personal take on things or things I've learned even away from music and branding would be my personal Facebook page. So if you look up Dean de Benedictus there, you'll get more of the kind of thing that you heard me say here. I will say though, I have suffered from enough complexes that I'm only now starting to express myself honestly in public. I've had a real phobia about that, and I've broken a few patterns for it by now, but not nearly enough. And so I'm working on it. So you may not get quite a lot of me in public in general yet, but this panel was a huge leap for me in that regard.
Thank you, Dean. You also have the Stratos Ensemble.
Indeed. As far as all my music goes, yeah, you can look up the Stratos Ensemble. You can look up my, under my name, you find plenty, Google me.
Yeah, you're the only guest on here, I believe, with their own Wikipedia page. So don't be so hard on yourself. Yeah, you've done you've done good things in this world. So
Thanks.
let's bring it back and let's bring it home. Does anyone else have a Wikipedia page? Sarah?
I tried to pay someone to make it for me, but they wouldn't do it.
Well, talk to Dean. He'll tell you how to.
On my aunts.
Yeah, they'll ask for a lot. gotta bribe some people, I guess.
Okay.
No, I don't even. I don't know how it happened. It just happened.
That's how it works. You're just famous enough, and it just appears on the internet.
I'm really not. It just
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, thank you all very much. And we actually have a subscriber who made my lights turn off. I was waiting all. And that brings me to my next pitch. Please, if you like this video, subscribe. I plan on doing more of these in the future, 2 or 3 a month. I'm not going to pressure myself too much. I was going to make a New Year's resolution. I'm saying I'm going to do this every week, and I can already tell that would have drove me insane. So I'm just going to say there's going to be some cool stuff on this YouTube channel in the future, and Sarah Jickling's probably going to be in 90% of it. So it's awesome. And hopefully all of you get to return too in the future. I want to just open up the floodgates and talk about all kinds of different issues. A lot going on in the world. It's not all around just like medical terminology and like let's talk about bipolar and mania and everything. Let's talk about how like serious things in the world are affecting our mental health externally, and how that's all not just all in our heads and like we just need to take our meds like good people and we'll all be better. No, there's a lot of craziness going on in the world that is totally outside of our control, but God damn it, we can do what we can to fight the good fight and to put these positive messages in the world. And we've got each other, we've got our community. It is only growing, and you out there can be a part of it by subscribing, by setting up those notification bells, and doing all that cool stuff, leaving comments and likes. It all helps. Trust me. I'm your host, Rudy Caseres. You can find me at rudycaseres.com. There's a contact form on there. You can, if you want to get in touch, if you want to collaborate, if you want me to, I do production for virtual events too. So if you want to do that, hey, Mona, how's it going? Oh, that's my sister. How are you doing? Great. Came at the right time. We're wrapping up, but guess what? If you're joining us late, there's going to be a replay right after this. You can watch anytime. You can still comment, do all the cool things. So stick with us. It's going to be good times ahead and definitely some bumps in the road. That's going to be my spiel. I'm very bad with endings, so I'm just going to have someone else do the final words, and then we'll do our little outro. So who should I call on? Jenny, final thoughts.
Oh, no. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Be good to yourself and be good to others, and also cats.